Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. This is Sim Bajpai, and I am the Director of Business Operations and Marketing at Innovizint. Thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar, Voice of Customer, the AI Paradigm. I have with me Mr. Divya Punj, Director and NLP Subject Matter Expert at Innovizint, and will be presenting the session for us today. Divya has over 12 plus years of experience in data science. In several occasions, worked very closely with the CMOs, CAOs, and CDOs to help shape their digital and customer engagement strategy. He has been trusted advisor to the CAOs, collaborated with the CDOs, and instrumental in ideating and deploying data and analytics capabilities. The cornerstone of his work has been his ability to create AI solutions, many times using NLP that would help understand customer sentiment and decipher customer voice at a deepened level. Before going ahead to the webinar today, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, please use the question feature of the control panel of the GoToWebinar. We'll bring them up at the end of the session and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and start the session. Divya, over to you now.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in for the webinar. Let's begin with the voice of customer, the AI paradigm. So let me walk you through the agenda for today. So we'll do a quick introduction on Innovizint. We'll talk about what big data has become today, and then talk about what the voice of the customer, how the organizations hear it in the current state, what should be the target state, what are the business benefits of the target state, certain implementation highlights. Then for this particular project approach, we use LDA as an analysis. So why use LDA? Then we'll walk you through a quick, nice case study, which will actually tell you how the data was used, what the data was, how it was analyzed, what were the results, the usage of the results. And then we'll wrap it up towards the end, talking about NLP in usage of NLP in various industries, as well as NLP challenges and how we plan to mitigate them. And in the end, we'll throw it open for question and answer session. So let's begin. So Innovizint is a global technology services provider specialized on digital transformation journey. And our primary focus is digital transformation using data analytics, machine learning, and AI. We have AIM practice primarily, which consists of data engineering, advanced analytics, and insights and actions using visualizations and other techniques through which core management people can actually understand what the insights are. So what big data is today? So big data primarily can be defined as 4 V's: volume, variety, veracity, velocity. In today's world, with the introduction of the user generated content capability like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we have huge volume of data which is getting generated. It is at an unprecedented pace as compared to what was in the past entire human history. So the rate at which the data that we are generating is growing is exponential. Typically, in mathematical terms, we call it e raised to x. As a result, at the speed at which data is being generated also happens to be exponential by the same parameter, and at the acceleration also ends up being e raised to x. There is a huge variety of data. Earlier, data was primarily created by organizations for internal consumption. Hence, most of the data used to be structured. But now what is the most of the data which is being generated is unstructured, mostly like Twitter tweets, free-form text on Facebook, photographs being posted on Instagram, and lots of videos being posted on YouTube. As a result, the velocity of data which is being generated and being consumed has increased exponentially as a result of this. And hence, in today's world, what is happening is that if the data is not consumed fast enough, it becomes stale and new data is already generated. And hence, to keep up with the pace of it, it has to be analyzed and consumed at the speed of which it is being generated. The major issue that is faced by every organization here is to the uncertainty in the data itself, because now data is no longer structured, it is very unstructured. So not only we have to deal with the aspect as is it correct data or not, but also how to analyze the whole unstructured data. And NLP is one of the forms of one of the use cases of machine learning and AI, where we can actually use this unstructured data which is being generated all over the place and and use it for analysis for improvement of our own businesses. So current state of voice of customer is basically that every organization would want to know what the customers think about themselves, and primarily how they do it is that they create questionnaires and survey questionnaires, and they are mailed out to customers. And when that happens, usually the amount of response rate that happens is very low. Typically, the response rate is between 2% to 0.5%. And frankly speaking, from statistical point of view, that is a range of the error if you have that much of data. So basically now everybody is looking at voice of customer based on a data which is so small that it would actually fall in the error zone itself. So are we engaging with our end customer? I believe truly not, because the rest of the entire chunk of the customers are totally left behind. As a result, there's a huge general latency in the process, and the insights are inadequate, primarily because today, and the time you take these surveys and are sent out at the end of a quarter, it takes 1 month for the response rate to come in, response rate to also stabilize, and it takes another 15 days to analyze it and give out results. And typically the senior management ends up seeing this result typically on an average about 5 months later from when it should have been available to them in real time. Why? So this is the present state. What is the intention is to reach to a target state. While the present state is primarily survey based, what we propose through this process is to eliminate the entire feedback forms and the survey methodology totally. We want to eliminate the response bias, which is introduced by the design of the questionnaire itself, and encourage customers to give free form feedback, basically to tell us whatever they want to tell us, and the capability to analyze what they are telling us in real time. This would result in the capability to analyze specific weaknesses and specific strengths, which would result primarily in marketing differentials as compared to everyone else. Hence, the objective is to evolve from traditional survey-based feedback mechanism to free-flowing customer engagement and derive insight from that deepened engagement with the customer itself. So business benefits of doing so is that there's an objective evaluation. There's no bias introduced by somebody who's listening to a call or reading to the feedback that has been sent across. There is an introduction of better process control, because in this whole process of analyzing data, we actually get to know where the pitfalls of our own processes are, which also means that if the processes are failing somewhere for any reasons at all, those process failures can be checked right in time. If the process that we have implemented in our business is not perfect, it needs betterment, and customers are facing issues, the process rationalization also can be done. And many times this also happens that process is not failing or is troublesome for the customers. It's just because the people, while the process was being implemented, a lot of people got trained to implement the process, but a certain aspect of training was not exhaustive enough. And hence we need to reskill and retrain our entire workforce in a particular piece of the process itself. And last but not the least, that we also get a comprehensive and a balanced feedback from the customers themselves. The feedback is not skewed by customers who are disgruntled, who had faced any issues. It's all across, the feedback is totally across the spectrum. Now, how do we implement this? We implement this from a starting line that every organization typically has a customer response center where people can call up and ask about their queries, issues, difficulties, problems that they face, or anything that they want new added to their particular portfolio. So all these voice calls are recorded, and these all voice calls can be transcribed to text. Once it is transcribed to text, we can take these text call records and add the demographics data which is already available of the customer with us. Once that is joined together, we store this whole data into an accessible database, and then this database is accessed by the artificial intelligence engine, and it processes this entire data to give us the relevant results, and then the results are sent out to be displayed in an internal dashboard or an app, whichever way the information needs to be consumed by the business. And the best part about this whole process is that it is a real-time analysis, which would result in real-time consumption of the customer feedback. Instead of waiting for 5 months, 6 months, you get real-time updates of how the business is developing. And furthermore, deeper analytics can be done going forward on this aspect. Now comes the part, why should we use LDA? Why not any other method which has been used traditionally? So basically, LDA is a topic modeling method. This has been primarily used in the past quite a lot, heavily by the search engines, where they go across the web and they crawl the web pages and they figure out which web page is containing what kind of information. And that's why, as a result, we see that if we today go and search Google, we always get very relevant results, which are relevant, customized all the way up to relevancy for us as an individual person. Whereas long ago, if somebody would have used the internet about 25 years ago, all the search engines would give out results which were based on a bag of words approach, that a word appears how many times in a particular page, and the more number of times it appears, that means that page is more relevant, which has obvious drawbacks and pitfalls, and that's the sole reason why Google became a go-to place for searching anything. In fact, it has come into the English lexicon that if you want to find something, Google it. That translates to go and search for it online. LDA basically what it does is it discovers abstract topics that occur in the text. So what LDA would do is not give out real topics to us. Like if the topic comes out, what LDA would give us is like a topic which is apple, bananas, pineapple, watermelon. And from this we infer, because we are humans, we infer that the topic is actually fruits. LDA would also give us results like orange, lemon, that's it. And from that, we can infer the topic is actually at a much deeper level of citrus fruits. So that's the kind of abstract topics that is discovered there. And why this is done is basically text content is large and hard to score for relevancy. So if so much of text is out there, either we go at it line by line to figure out what is relevant and which text belongs to which category. And given the amount of data which is currently being generated in free form, that's just a very huge task. This helps to again discover topics of high levels, and we can drill down and split it out as much as we want to. And it also tells us that within a particular text content, given a particular topic, what is the probability that that topic occurs in that text? So it's a very good measure of understanding at a certain accuracy level how well that topic is represented in the text. So certain text would have a mixture of a lot of topics, and eventually we would get a result that this particular text has this much percentage of this topic, certain A percentage of topic 1, B percentage of topic 2, and so on and so forth. And this is also quite helpful when the analysis is run. And as I said, the usual bag of words approach, which used to be done by the earlier search engines, failed miserably, and Google and other modern search engines used LDA as a technique, and hence they were more successful and they became more relevant for us to use. Now coming to the case study that I would like to describe here, which would give a lot more sense to what really how it works. So what basically one particular hotel property wanted to do is that they wanted to know what customers think about it, as simple as that. And a huge amount of data was available on it because people went on to a lot of public websites and put out reviews for the particular property. And in this particular case, we used the data from TripAdvisor. What we did was we took the data from TripAdvisor, imported the data into our NLP engine. We ran the LD analysis to find the topic of each particular review. And the whole AI base was built in Python. And for the end result, whatever results the business wanted to see, all those results were displayed in using open source tools, and visualizations were again created in open source tools. So coming to the case study itself, what the data looked like, what does it look like? So this is the kind of data that we managed to get, got from TripAdvisor. And as you see, this is free flowing text, and anything and everything that they wanted to say is there, and it is exactly in the way they wanted to say, irrespective of how others wanted them to say. So as I will pause here for some time so that you can have a look at what actually the data looked like for us. So moving on from this, I would like to now show you a demo of how we actually executed the code. So these are the code execution steps. We first loaded the data from the JSON sources. The data was downloaded in JSON. And then we cleaned the text for non-text characters. We again cleaned the text for stop words. We created the base model array. And this is what is necessary because you want to discover how many topics is the best way to analyze this entire data. So you might want to have a range of, say, 1 to 30, for example, and you would want to know what is the number of topics which gives the most relevant and the most cohesive results. Based on the optimum number of topics, we select the model. Then once the model is selected, we assign the topic to each text item via the selected model. And then eventually we get the topic list. And last step is we translate the abstract topics to meaningful human readable topics, and then we bring together the results. So let me take you to the execution part itself. So as you can see, this is the Python code that I've already written, and I'll just run for it. I just have to mute one part of it, which might take a lot of time otherwise. Yeah, that's it. So as you see, these are all the JSON files which got imported for analysis of data. And this is pretty much the entire end-to-end code that we have written to build out this model. So these are all library imports which are being done. And then the JSON file loads, removing all the stop words and so on and so forth. And basically building out the models. Here, what we are also doing is that we are not using the bag of words method. So what LDA does is it creates a phrase dictionary. So basically you take 2 words together, 3 words together. These are the phases. And essentially, mathematically speaking, at the base of it, what it is also doing is that it finds the probability of given word X being present, what is the probability of word Y being present also. And given the probability of Y being present, what is the probability of X being present, and probability of them combined to be present at the same time in the same zone. So while the language is there, it is not mathematical, but language is also not so very ambiguous that there's no lexicon. Whatever we say, we don't string sentences together from random words. So everything makes sense. And this is the mathematical modeling of the sentences and the words, how they are related to each other. And that's what is being used here. So as you see that these are all reviews that are being evaluated by the model, and everything is being scored. So while this model will take a while to run, let me take you to the results which we have already calculated for this entire set of model. So as you can see, we have already translated it into an Excel file so that it can be viewed very easily. And so what you see here in column T is the original text we had for every review that we picked up from the public website. And this entire text was evaluated. Now, in column C, you see the keywords. Keywords is, so basically this was a topic. Topics are numbered from 0 to 7 here. And for this particular topic, topic number 0, the keywords for this topic were these. And these are the words which come together to represent the text which is in column D. So these keywords together form the abstract level of topic discovered by the code itself. And column B actually tells us what is the percentage contribution of this particular topic for this particular text. So we would be able to understand how much of this text is this particular topic. And if I translate this topic into a human readable form, you would say that, okay, this is a topic for hotel room quality. Row number 3, it would be hotel noise. Row number 4, it would be, there was great service at the hotel. Now let me bring you to how we actually translated the topics, the abstract topics, to human readable topics, which can be used by the business side. So basically we had these dominant topics numbers listed out here, and these were the keywords. Given those keywords, we could actually manually create these number of topics which are human understandable and human readable. So all these topics tell us a particular aspect of the review itself. Was it a great service? Was the review majorly about the hotel, restaurant? Is it about the location of the hotel and commute? Were there any staff service issues? The hotel has had apparently quite a lot of engaging events. The staff was great, and so on and so forth. So once all these topics are already generated, so let me take you back to the code which has already ended running. So we have the code here. Let me take you to the results. So if we let me make it better. So this is how actually what I showed you in Excel is exactly what is here. Dominant topic number, how much is the percentage contribution? Now this is percentage not in multiplied by 100, it's actually the fraction which is there. So it's 0.28 is actually 28.55%. The keywords for that and the review. And if you see that this whole analysis, it took about say 5 minutes or 10 minutes to run an analysis for 2,844 reviews. Had it but been done by human, there would be huge amount of huge number of man hours which would have been spent for that, and which we cut down into minutes, which is like a miracle in its own self. So this is basically the entire code which has run and ended. And I would come back to the Excel file for a good representation of the data that you would be seeing. And I would just randomly scroll to some location, and I'll give out a pause here so that you can read it and see. Now, I would like to bring your notice to row number 30, which is currently highlighted. Now, as you see that here, the topic which is modeled has a probability that it is only 16% round figure that this topic is present in this text. And as we see that the topic is all about hotel restaurant, but it is actually hotel restaurant is not being referred anywhere. So this is the point where we actually know that we always account for the fact that NLP can go wrong. It cannot give us perfect answers. So we actually see that, okay, this was associated primarily because of the price. And in other places, with reference to the restaurant, the price and the paying capabilities came up, and hence it attributed to the hotel restaurant. But eventually, this algorithm did know that this is a low probability attribution, and hence it has marked it as such. So these kinds of results can actually be filtered out for the final analysis, which can be done. So coming back to the presentation, so we have already seen the results in Python, we have seen it in Excel, and it's again on the presentation again. So I hope we would have already seen a lot of these results. So I would like to move on from this. So what was the practical implication of this entire case study? What was the benefit which was derived? And this is what the benefit that the hotel particularly derived. What they got to understand after this entire analysis was run, that the right positioning for the right marketing communication that they send out is present in the first part. The factors are like this property is an enjoyable place for families to stay. It is close to all the popular sites to visit in the city. It's easily accessible to public transport. It's great place if you're commuting using your own car or rented car, and it has a very good in-house restaurant. Now comes for the areas of improvement. As you see that the first area of improvement is that soundproofing within rooms was not really adequate. There was noise that people were hearing from the elevator and the road from outside. That's the structural issue. The next part comes is, what did this indicate about the process? This whole analysis, when taken a little further, actually demonstrates that the cancellation of the cancellation policy for this hotel was not communicated effectively, and hence people who had major issues with this hotel were, with respect to the process, were all regards to the cancellation policy, and they were totally dissatisfied. They thought cancellation policy was something else. It turned out to be something else, and hence resulted in dissatisfaction. As you can see clearly that the result of this entire analysis, when seen from the business perspective, is very powerful, very, very precise, and very, very to the point as compared to any analysis that you would get from voice of customers survey that is sent out typically at the end of each quarter. Moving on, let's talk about the usage of NLP in various industries. NLP is used in customer service, where speech recognition is used to respond to a lot of common queries of customers. I believe some of you or all of you would have always come across a system where the computer is speaking to you and they ask you to say something, you say something, and they come up with the answers. It's also used for reputation monitoring in the sense of what is the sentiment towards my products, my brand, my company. NLP is used for ad placements as to understand what is the context of my ad and where it is being placed, and is the context of the page where it is being displayed correct or not. It's also used for market intelligence to understand what are the events happening in the competitive space. Is the competitor's product failing? Has certain shortcomings? Do I have certain strengths at the same place where the competitors has shortcomings? It's also event extraction for your own shortcomings and own events. Like, is my product failing? Is my product having any shortcomings? Are people having any issues with my product or services? The NLP is used hugely by pharma companies for regulatory compliance, because many times they'll release drugs and those drugs will actually start causing adverse effects in the population that it is released to. And hence, people would come out and post their reviews about the particular drug and talk about it, that I'm getting headache after using this drug, I probably got diarrhea after using this drug, and so on and so forth. And you really want to be, as a pharma company, you really want to be on top of the events which are happening, because if those events really start happening and those are not investigated well in time, then the regulatory compliance impact will be sometimes, in some cases, pretty huge. coming to the challenges of NLP and how do we mitigate them. Challenges of NLP primarily rely on the fact that language was created thousands of years ago and was not created with the aim for a machine to understand it or as a set of rules. Though, yes, grammar says that yes, rules exist and we all follow them, but they are so vast and they've overlapped so much. And most of the rules that we understand of language and interaction is primarily by interacting with other people and understanding the nuances. It's pretty much said that 50% of the communication is non-verbal. Out of the verbal concept, only half of it is what you say. It is most of it is how you say it. So typically, what a conversation would happen would be all text is a translation of a voice or a direct text which is available, and that also means that 70% of the context is already lost there, and hence the machines have big problems and the algorithms have big problems in understanding what is humor. Humor also relies on the ambiguity of the language itself, polysemy in the language, co-reference resolution, ellipsis resolution, and due to all of these issues, the information is extraction from the entire text which is available to us for analysis. Now coming to the part, how do we mitigate it? The only way any organization can suitably mitigate it is when they create a custom and AI-based NLP engine, which is very specific to their business use case. And why I say that, because once your scope is very narrow, you already know what narrow scope of conversations any customer would tend to do with you. So as long as nobody is trying to create a Siri or a Google Assistant, the NLP engines and AI engines work really well for a very customized solution. And we also have to incorporate for the fact that we have to detect when the AI-based NLP is failing. And once we detect that AI-based NLP is failing, we should have a escape hatch where the entire interaction or the entire process is taken out from the hands of a NLP-based AI engine and transferred to human. And that's what we call human intervention in NLP failure. I guess that was my presentation. I hope it was informative enough, and I would be open to question and answers right now.
Thanks a lot, Divya. As promised, let us take the questions now. I would again request all the attendees that if they have any questions, they can use the control panel question feature and send their questions to us. I'm taking the first one now. What is Innovision's take on NLP technology for a change in financial services industry?
And now, how it works in financial industry is that financial industry is pretty broad, right from retail facing to wealth management. And NLP comes in very handy out there. Very importantly, like we have a curious case of Wells Fargo long ago where people had issues with their accounts without their permission. Their money was transferred to investment accounts and so on and so forth. And there was a huge case, and hence there was a regulatory backlash. Had Wells Fargo put in the right NLP processes to analyze all the conversations that were happening with the customers or the call center agents, they would have figured out that customers are suddenly coming to the bank and telling them that where has my money gone? Why has my money gone from my particular account to some other, has been utilized for something? Basically, the account has been touched without my permission. Had they used this kind of analysis, and they would have figured out long before the government would have needed to step in. And the benefit of this whole NLP analysis which would have been put in is that nobody could have intervened in between. It would have been take the information, analyze it, process it, present it on a dashboard for everyone to see. And that's the power of NLP. That's like one of the use cases. There are many more use cases to understand what the customers are doing, what is the feedback, what is the scope of improvement, what are the issues, what are the pitfalls, what are the places where there's a high probability of fraud occurring because of lapse of internal processes or internal processes not being followed. So it's a very powerful tool, especially for fraud, process variation based fraud.
Okay. The next question we have, I guess, is the same genre. How beneficial will NLP applications technology be for the banking industry?
NLP is very, very important for banking industry, again, for the same reason that you can prevent fraud from occurring. Say, nowadays banks are mediums and outlets for selling a lot of financial products. So if you're introducing a new product, what is the review? If people are facing any issues, what are the issues, where the process has gone wrong? Then a lot of people do call up their banks to figure out, to get their results. So in general, talking about NLP, you could build out an NLP engine to actually start responding to customer queries, whereby you reduce the call traffic, which is transferred to humans, by good 70 to 80%. That's good 70 to 80% reduction in cost. And those are mundane questions to be answered, like what is my account balance, so on and so forth. And like one particular financial institution has actually implemented NLP in a new flavor. They have actually implemented a solution which actually figures out what is the emotion of the caller while they're talking, and they have implemented it for all their call center agents. And while the call is going on, they can actually see on their screen what is the probable emotion which the customer, the member, is actually sounding in his voice, and accordingly they can react properly or act properly, be empathetic to that situation, be firm in a particular situation, and so forth, so on and so forth. And this has resulted in extremely high customer satisfaction for them. So various implementations of NLP can be across the organization. So it's like you have forms, you have information which is fed in, and that can be analyzed in NLP to understand is it correct or not. Like if you're selling insurance products using banking channels, if insurance policy is being cancelled or a claim is coming in, the moment you read the reason for the claim, now what happens is that in insurance it has been proved that given the reason why the claim has come in, you can analyze that entire text and figure out what is the probability that this is a fraud claim or to be accepted claim. In another case, if the policy is being cancelled, is it to be really cancelled, or is it to be transferred, or it has to be merged with another policy? That kind of case analysis can be done by NLP with 90% of accuracy. So like experts don't have to go through all the documents, all the cases. They can go through all those cases which are picked up by NLP, and typically that results in 90% reduction on the number of cases that they look, and at the number of cases they look at and they have to act upon, that ratio typically goes up to 80-85%.
Okay, I guess this answers the question. Thank you, Divya. We have a couple of more questions, but we are running out of time. What I can do is I can email the answers to the respective attendees with the recording of the session to everyone, and we will definitely encourage your feedback as well. So, Divya, anything you want to say before wrapping up the session?
Thanks for joining in, and I appreciate the time you spent. I hope I did introduce you to something interesting and relevant for your businesses. And yeah, when the day I discovered LDA analysis and how it can be used to analyze text, I was floored myself. So I hope you had the same feeling. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Divya, for giving us your time. And thank you all to our attendees. Thank you for joining, everyone. You all have been a fantastic audience. Hope you all have a productive day ahead. Thanks a lot.